presented by Bones Brothers Media.
We are off and we are running in the 2022 PGA tournament season. And man, that first tournament, I know it was an all-star game of sorts, but records just obliterated. Scores so low, they were hypothermic down there in Hawaii. How about this? Jon Rahm makes 32 birdies, makes an eagle, one bogey throughout the entire weekend, loses the golf tournament by a shot. How about this other statistic? This one's even better. Prior to the Tournament of Champions last weekend, only 3 players in PGA history had ever finished a tournament at 30 under par in history. And we are 1 week into 2022, and we have matched that statistic. Jones, Rahm, and our winner, Cam Smith, all go at 32 under or better last weekend. I mean, we said it last week. It was going to be a tough tournament to handicap. But with those soft conditions, that was an assassin's row to start the 2022 season. My name is Edge. Follow me on Twitter at GolfGuyWV. Welcome into the program. Bones DK Golf joining us as always. How are you today, Bones?
Doing great, man. What an exciting weekend. That was almost exhausting, just refreshing my phone every 30 seconds for lead changes there in the second round. But eventually, Smith and Rahm kind of took their leads there and Matt Jones. But man, that was wild. I said on my Twitter, it felt like I was playing Tiger Woods 05, with my buddies. If you weren't 18 under, then you weren't going to win.
It was actually frustrating to watch because it was very difficult to make up ground after that first day. TW Man 66 joining us from what appears to be a parking lot in Tampa, Florida. How are you today, Wild Man?
We're in St. Pete. We're feeling good. I got 27 in myself on Monday out here in St. Pete. So sorry to those up north who were unable to do so. But
how many birdies did you make in those 27?
0.
Yeah, his fantasy golf score would not have been very high, I can guarantee that. But the weather was nice, at least, that's for sure. It's sub-zero up here in the Northeast. So we did have some success last week. We nailed Cam Smith right out of the gate, plus 3,200. We were high on Berger. We were high on Thomas, Leishman, who all finished in the top 10 last week, Bones DK. Cam Davis, by the way, Wild Man, was our flyer of the week. So like usual, we were sniffing around the trophy, but it was a tough first week. So what are we looking for as we get into the Sony this week at Waialae Country Club?
Wild Man.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, I mean, so there is not much correlation between these two tournaments as far as the style of play. However, something we're definitely looking at that cannot be ignored is that those guys that played last week are going to have an advantage this week with the time zone and just with getting adapted to the Hawaii style of living. You might have some family members out there on vacation and things like that. So yeah, we're looking at that. As a matter of fact, last year, 90% of the players at the Sony Open that played the week prior made the cut. So that's important, 27 out of 30. And that trend is not quite 90% over the last 5 years, but it's up there. So if you're in a position where you're going to be looking at, a guy that played last week versus a guy that didn't play last week, there's your edge. And it's a ball striker's course. As you saw, guys, last week, Cameron Smith, we said it on the podcast, he's the best putter in the world. The second best putter is probably Jon Rahm, right? There they are, 1 and 2. Those Bermuda greens can chew guys up. I mean, there was a lot of short putts missed. So again, it's going to be important to hit greens, good ball striking, and obviously run those putts in because the scores should be low again this week if there's not much wind.
Conditions are going to be important here again also. I mean, the only defense against these guys at this point on the PGA Tour is hard, fast greens. That's it. Because if you get a soft course, low wind, you're going to see sub-30s again and again, quite frankly, throughout 2022. It's just the way the PGA Tour is in 2022. This Sony Open is at Waialae Country Club. Kevin Na returns to defend his title. 24 of the 39 players that played in last week's Tournament of Champions back in the field this week, including the winner, Smith, who has won here before. He's the only top 10 player in the field, by the way. Only 3 top 20 guys in this field. So, one thing going against Smith this week, though, it's hard to repeat on this Hawaii swing. Only Els has done it back in 2003. Thomas did it back in 2017. It is a cut event, though, Bones DK. 144 guys, full field. Par 70, it's not that long. Wildman just said the fairways are kind of easy to hit. Actually, you can take a lot of risks on this course, cut a lot of corners. So big hitters usually win at this tournament. In fact, the winner at this tournament has finished in the top 5 the last 5 years that it's been here in driving distance. So is that one of the statistics you're looking at this week, Bones DK?
Yeah, I'm not looking too much into driving distance. I'm more looking at ball striking and putting, just like last week. I think they have a lot of similarities. So, yeah, the guys that played last week have quite of a bit advantage, but there doesn't mean you only play guys that played last week. There are a couple guys out there that, you can get in your lineup that first time playing this year.
Let's dive right into it then. The top tier, which we're going to say over $10,000, has 6 guys in it. We got Cam Smith, who won last week. Matsuyama, who's ranked 19th in the world right now at 10,600. Webb Simpson seems to be a favorite in some of the Twitter golf community this week. He's at 10,500. Sung Jae Im at 10,003, and then Mark Leishman, who we're a big fan of on the Bones DK podcast, at 10 grand. Any of those top guys that you're going to build around this week, Bones DK?
Yeah, all these guys have a case this week. Can Cam Smith win back-to-back? He only has 2 wins in his career. It's here at the Sony Open in 2020 and then last week. So the chances of him going back-to-back, that's pretty much the only argument against him. And yes, I think he can go back-to-back, honestly, this week. 31 birdies and 3 eagles last week. And there's no signs of him slowing down. So, yeah, I do like Cam Smith a lot. Man, I kind of just wish we were on Cam Davis last week, Leishman, Cam Smith, and we kind of overlooked Matt Jones with the Aussie build there. I just kind of overlooked him. So, I think you go back to the Aussies this week and you won't go wrong. You got Hideki there. Webb Simpson, let's go over to course history here, has some amazing history. A 4th, 3rd, and 4th in his last 3 appearances here. So, yeah, there's not much argument against him except he didn't play last week. I think he will get a lot of ownership. But, a guy I'm looking at, there's Sung Jae Im. I might go right back to Mark Leishman. This dude is pouring in birdies. Finished with 27 birdies last week. Had a 3rd and a 4th in this tournament, and a 28th in 2020. But again, this is a cut event, and there just seems to be something going on with Mark Leishman right now. I do get scared of Mark Leishman because I feel like every time somebody's on him when he's chalky, that's when he lets everyone down. You kind of want to get him in a spot where he's only like 4 or 5% owned. But I think he's still going to be overlooked here, especially with this price at $10K. So I don't mind starting my lineups with Mark Leishman this week.
Is $11,200 too much to pay for Cam, though? He's got to win if you're going to pay that kind of price for him, Wildman, no?
Yeah, I agree. I think, Bones DK started to say it, right? Like, you see a guy up here, who's above Bryson, major champion, above Hideki, major champion, above Webb Simpson, major champion, above Mark Leishman. And you're probably thinking like, okay, we're talking about a 10-time PGA Tour winner to demand this price. It's not the case. He's only won twice, last week being his 2nd win, like you said. So 1 win coming into that event. You really have to bring it. And we'll probably play the probability against him this week. You can't argue his birdies, and you can't argue the fact that he's won here before. I will say this, though. When he won in 2020, that was a bit of an anomaly at this particular course because the rain and the wind was so bad. I believe he won at 11 under par. Generally speaking, you're going to see something around 20, 22 under par winning here. He can do that, obviously, but you might not see that. The only thing against Webb Simpson, guys, is that correlation to having played last week. As you know, he's a multiple-time winner on the PGA Tour, along with a major champ, a player's champ. So he tends to be in that week at Kapalua prior to this, and this week he was not. So that could be something to look out for, just given the fact that, he might be flying out today to play in this thing. Probably not today, but maybe yesterday or Monday to play and adapting to that and kind of getting his bearings going. But yeah, we're Leishman, you can't argue those numbers either. There seems to be something about Australians at the Sony Open. And so maybe it is Mark Leishman's time if we can get him at a significant savings from Cameron Smith as our top Aussie.
The next tier, Kevin Na kicks off, who is the defending champion. He's at 9,900. Ancer at 9,700, who is one of those 3 top 20 players in the field. Harris English at 9,300. A lot of people like Corey Connors this week in the Twitter golf community, so his ownership may be up there. But he may have some value here at 9,600. And then Gooch, who we love on this podcast, at 91. So I don't know if this segment, Bones DK, the 9,000 range, has the most value in it, but I think there are a couple value picks here. What do you think?
It definitely doesn't have the most value. I think you get value a little lower in price, but Abraham Ancer, he really let me down last week. I played him in my big lineup. He was essentially the reason I didn't cash in the $200 single. I had Cam Smith in 100% of my lineups on DraftKings and just didn't get a big cash. Abraham Ancer, he still somehow had 20 birdies, but look at these 8 bogeys and 1 double bogey. He missed like 10 putts under 10 feet. I mean, his irons are actually technically there, so I could see you going back to Abraham Ancer this week, especially because I'm known to be a week early on some guys. So this is a perfect moment to just hammer Abraham Ancer while I'm just, disgusted over his week last week. I mean, he really let me down. I doubled down on him in the showdown, and again, he was the only reason why I didn't cash. So I'm not going back to Abraham Ancer this week. He is a good player, but not going to get there. The player I really like here, and again, this isn't that hot of a take, but it is Taylor Gooch, actually. He doesn't have great history here, but this guy really just showed me last week that he is the real deal. I mean, you look at these stats going back to September 16th, and, he has 20 birdies, eagle, 24 birdies, 2 eagles, and then he comes back and gets 19 birdies and 2 eagles and only 3 bogeys. So his history isn't amazing at this tournament, which scares me a little bit, and I do believe he might be high owned. But as you saw last week, the chalk is still hitting in golf. So I'm definitely leaning Taylor Gooch here in this one.
If we had to pick a most valuable player to us in 2021, Wildman, it very well could have been Harris English. At 9,300, do you like him at all this week?
I always like him. I mean, he's elevated his game very much like Gooch, let's say, into that sort of elite level based on the world golf ranking. I mean, English is the second highest player ranked in the field this week at 14. So you simply can't ignore that. Ryder Cup player, he's starting to, get in that upper echelon. So yeah, I mean, generally speaking at this course, I want to back good putters, and I consider him a good putter. Anytime you're on these types of greens, you just want good putters. Ancer is interesting, and I'll tell you why. I mean, again, he's 20th in the world. You're going to get him at a bargain. He was close enough to contend in that tournament. He didn't bring the putter. That's what you're going to get every week with Abraham Ancer. Can he sink those putts or can't he? And you're going to have to put your own money on the line to bet on that. But my guy in this range is going to be Kisner. Good course history here. Again, I just talked about putters, right? Kevin Na, historically, a very, very streaky putter, defending champ. Cameron Smith, you know how we feel about his putter, 2020 champ. Justin Thomas, historically streaky with the putter. Kuchar's been okay with the putter. These are guys that have won here. And so I want to back guys that I think can get streaky with the putter. I think Kisner is one of the streakiest players on the PGA Tour. Last week, he started out bogey in the first 4 holes. Didn't make another bogey the rest of the week, I don't think. 28 birdies, had himself right in contention there. And he, much like, let's just say Kisner, right? Kisner has specific fits to his game. Those low ball flight, tree-lined fairways where he can get it out there. Distance is not at a premium. And he can get streaky and pour in those putts. This checks every box for me for Kisner. Good finish last week, top 10, and obviously played last week. So that's something we're looking for. 8,900. I love Kisner this week.
Yeah, Kisner kicks off the $8,000 tier at 8,900. Then you've got Horschel at 87. You've got Kokrak at 86. Henley at 85. Jones, who had a great week last week, at 84. McNeely, who we love on the Bones DK podcast, he's at 83. Van Rooyen, 82. Seamus Power, 81. And then Howell the third at 8. So a lot of guys in this $8,000 tier. A little bit of value here too, Bones, I think. I mean, you got to worry about 8,400 is great for Jones, but he's going to be off the charts ownership this week with that price, don't you think?
That's a good question, actually, how high his ownership would be. But yeah, I don't really. He had 0 bogeys and only a double bogey last week. The thing about Matt Jones is, like, I was watching the tournament on Saturday, and the announcer was like, "Oh, Matt Jones has been here since December 15th practicing this course. And I was like, oh my God, that's just a stat I wish I would have known before I did all this, and I didn't know that. So right when I heard that, I actually played Matt Jones in both Saturday and Sunday showdowns because I was like, that's an amazing thing, and he showed up. So yeah, that is interesting. So I don't see why. What is the argument against Matt Jones? It's that he's Matt Jones, right? But can he do it back to back? I think he can definitely score points. 8,400 seems expensive, but this week you are paying up for these guys. It's just not that strong of a field. So all of a sudden, Cam Davis is 8,000, Maverick McNeely 8,300. But then you get like a guy like Russell Henley here. His price is about right. I could see him showing up at one of these tournaments. He's really a hit or miss player for us. It seems like every time I play him, he's +1 through 4, and then the day I fade him, he's -4 through 7. So Russell Henley, I think, is a pretty good play this week in this range. This isn't necessarily my favorite range. I will double down on Kevin Kisner. He's a core play this week. He will be in my lineups. I do love Kevin Kisner this week. Get him in your lineups. And then Maverick McNeely is the other guy I wanted to talk about. A good corollary course is the RCB Heritage in South Carolina, and he has a top 10 in that course, maybe even a 4th place. So he did not play last week, but look at these finishes: 38th, 25th, 11th, 19th. Good birdies, gets eagles. So I do like him. He's not like a core player or anything, but I can definitely back Maverick McNeely this week.
Is Cam Davis worth $8,000, Wildman? He was our flyer of the week last week.
I think he is. I mean, we know what kind of talent he has, and we were hoping he brought that talent last weekend, and he did. So there's no reason to believe that layoff didn't help him kind of recharge the batteries for him. And, clearly he can ball strike and can stick irons in there. He missed a couple short ones too. I think he had a 5-footer for eagle on Saturday.
He did.
A couple other 8-footers that he kicked. So, at 8,000, I mean, look, I wouldn't bet Matt Jones over Cameron Davis. I wouldn't, I mean, I'll tell you one thing, Matt Jones ain't shooting 32 under this week, So, yeah, I would look down for a little bit of savings here because this range is so tight. I think there's an argument for Kokrak and Billy Horschel as well. But I do like Henley. I think Henley's got a lot of potential here, and he's been here before and he's produced here before. That means something to me. But yeah, Cam Davis, I think we're going to fire him up again.
All right, below 8,000 now. I mean, this $7,000 tier, there might be 20 guys in here, but some notables here. We have, let's see, Kim at 77, a guy that we love on this podcast so much, Brendan Todd, that we play every once in a while at 75, Kuchar at 75, who we just mentioned ago, Keegan Bradley at 74, Stu Sink all the way down at 72, and believe me, there are a bunch of guys sprinkled in between those names that I'm calling out there. So, Bones, I'm just going to let you have it kind of freestyle here. What do you see in the below $8,000 tier?
Yeah, Stu Sink is definitely a play I was looking at. He's won the RBC 3 times, and he seemed to be doing pretty well last week. I'm pretty sure he had 20 birdies. Let's look at Stu Sink here. Yeah, 20 birdies and an eagle. I mean, everyone had 20 birdies last week pretty much, so it's not that amazing. But I do like Stu Sink as a underdog. He's made the cut every time he's played here. And so, again, this is a cut event. These new guys learning golf right now in the fantasy world, it's not going to be a 30 under and you guarantee 4 rounds every time. You got to make this cut. And last week, some people got away with people like Harris English, getting 2 extra rounds when they really didn't really necessarily deserve it. So I do like Stu Sink just because it's a cut event, and I think he can pour in birdies. My favorite play in this range, and he was a popular play last week, so I think people probably will be going back to him, is Joel Damon, the bucket hat. I just love the guy. I always say if we win the $1 million, I'm going to invite him to our party, our celebration party, and party with the guy because he's just a cool dude. 24 birdies last week, no eagles, but there's only 2 par 5s on this course, so I'm not really looking at par 5 scoring as much as I was last week. So I just need birdies and to make the cut. You can see he's made cuts 6 times in a row. I don't know if he has great history here. I do have it up this time. Yeah, so he does. A 12th, a 22nd, and a 73rd. So He's made the cut in the 3 appearances since 2017. So I'm big on Joel Damon this week.
I don't want to make you give your flyer of the week away yet, Wild Man, but do you see any value with anybody in particular below $8,000?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Damon. I think Damon's got a lot of guts and can pour in birdies. I've heard Keith Mitchell. There's a lot of people touting Keith Mitchell going into the 2022 season. I think he's got 3 top 25s in 4 appearances here. So clearly he's familiar with the course. And if you can get a guy like Keith Mitchell who, has a significant downside at a high ownership, I like that fade a lot. And you pivot right there to Damon. That's pretty good. Another guy I'll say, and I don't have much data to back him up right this moment, but Bezuidenhout, the South African at 7,800, you tend to see him at these prices that are down here with guys that, are maybe like slightly below average golfers on PGA Tour metrics. But man, he appears in the big moments, including majors, where you see him at the top of the leaderboard. He's a guy I would not be surprised to see near the top. I'm not predicting he's going to win by any means, but certainly a guy that feels like his talent level and his skill set's a little bit higher than 7,800. And then lastly, we can stick to that correlation of like Sedgefield, Colonial, RBC Heritage, Harbor Town. You got Denny McCarthy, you got Brian Harmon, you've got Keegan. These are all guys that have had success at that course in this range that I think there's an argument for. So, I'll save my flyer. He's actually in this range. We're not going to go too low because I believe the ownership's going to be so low on this flyer.
Bezuidenhout, one of the great last names in the history of the PGA Tour. Does Appy Barnrat still play on tour? Wild Man or Bones DK?
He does. Well, is he in the tournament? I'm not sure.
Perhaps the greatest last name in the history of the PGA
Oh,
Tour.
yes, he is
Appy
the
Barnrat.
last name.
Look for a plume of smoke coming from the course because he rips heaters like John Daly rips heaters.
We love value on the podcast, Bones DK. Something new that we're doing this year. Your value pick or picks of the week. Who do you got for us?
So I'm gonna stick with Kevin Kisner, Joel Damon as my 2 value plays this week. I love Damon's price, and I think Kisner. I think hopefully he's going to be overlooked. I think people are scared to play him. I love Kevin Kisner. Check out his Twitter. He's a funny guy. He sent a tweet out like, I'm back. He's ready to go. So I want this guy. I think he's a great bet to top 10. He's done it twice, top 5 already, two T4s at this tournament. So I like Kevin Kisner a lot. And I just like Joel Damon. I think he's cool and collected out there. He does not let pressure get under him. And he can string up streaks and birdies.
Damon also with a social media presence. Him and Max Homa always go back and forth on the Twitter. Wild Man, your flyer of the week. Who you got?
Kisner's a Georgia guy, by the way. Big Bulldog fans.
Yeah.
Of course, he's been
celebrating. He's been celebrating.
You said he's a great guy. He's got that viral video where he's getting heckled and he, from like 180 out, he sticks it like 2 feet, turns to the crowd. He goes, "This ain't no effing hobby." And they're all, shuts them all up pretty good. But piggybacking on that, we're going to pull our flyer of the week out at 7,300. It's a bit on the high end of a flyer, but I think his ownership is so low this week. And he's a guy that models his game much like Kevin Kisner with that low ball flight, with that streaky putting. And a guy that played last week, a guy that's won at RBC, which is a corollary course. It's Brandon Grace, South African, 7,300. I think he's got a world of talent. He was played well enough last year to get into the Tournament of Champions. And here he is again, checking those boxes as a guy who's played, as a guy that can keep it low if the wind he kicks up, and a guy that's won multiple times on the tour. He's contended at majors. And like I said, he's won at RBC, which is our #1 corollary course. So let's do Brandon Grace. Probably getting him probably under 7% this week, I would imagine.
And also, let's add a little more spice to the pot right there, Wild Man, because Grace is actually 7,100 this week, not 7,300.
$200 savings there.
Yeah, $200 in savings. Cash it. Get the coupon in your Sunday paper. Final thoughts on the Sony at Wildlife. If I can recall this real quick, too, guys. Nintendo 64. You remember that archaic video game system? I think the very first golf game Nintendo 64 ever put out was a Wildlife Country Club golf game, and I think we owned it in our
That's
family.
a good call, actually.
Definitely accurate. That game came out like late 90s on N64.
Yeah. Seemed at this point, since we were the only family to ever own it, and the only family to ever hear of it, it seems like probably a horrible waste of time and effort for anybody that played it or was involved in making it. But that was the first golf game on Nintendo 64 as far as we're concerned. So final thoughts this week, Bones. Sony Open, Waialae Country Club, East Honolulu, Hawaii.
You know, I think we covered most of our guys that we wanted to talk about. Obviously, refer to the top plays picks that I'll get out. The top plays are on fire so far, already consisting of the winner. And, you know, I was going to go back and check the top plays from last year and see how many winners were on the top plays. I should have done this, you know, and tout the top plays. But I think we had over 15 winners last year easily on the top plays. And we already started off the season with one. A bunch of top 5s, top 10s, top 15s on that. And I'll get some $6,000 guys on there. I know people want to get some cheaper guys. I will say this. Last week I said that you could take a little more risk and go stars and scrubs. Clearly that was the case, as Matt Jones was only $6,000, the minimum price. This week you're going to want to get a little less risky with your plays and get some solid players in there, especially since it's a cut event now. So, again, if you're new to the golf world, I got some new guys on Twitter. Just make sure you're getting guys that make the cut after 2 days, because if you get a 4 or 6 this week, you're not going to be cashing. So
I know this isn't necessarily your forte, Wild Man, but who's going to win this tournament this weekend?
Kisner. I mean, we keep, you know, not to belabor the point, he's the pick to win. I think I feel very confident in him being in contention come Sunday. And you know, I'd say this too, like, if you look at the past winners, I mean, Kazire won it, I think, like 3 or 4 years ago. Other than that, you know, you got Kuchar, you got Thomas, you got Jimmy Walker, you got Cameron Smith. You know, these are guys that are upper echelon players at the time of that victory. So I would look for guys that, you know, I don't think you're going to get, you know, Corn Ferry Rook out here winning.
Great storyline with Kisner this weekend also in Hawaii. Georgia Bulldogs win their first championship in the last 41 years. He does like to tip a few back, too. He said as much on the Foreplay podcast with Barstool. He's probably been partying all this week. That is something I would consider if you're thinking Kisner, because that's going to go one of two ways. He's either going to be flying on cloud 9, maybe run away with this golf tournament, just like Georgia did in the last minute of the fourth quarter, or else he might fold up like a lawn chair and go sip a Mai Tai on the beach a little early and start thinking about that Georgia Bulldog hangover. You know, we'll find out.
There's
this
a lot of
weekend,
Bulldogs.
certainly.
Harris English is a Bulldog. Swafford.
Kazire might be one too.
Yeah, because Henley. I think Russell Henley is a Bulldog.
Yeah, Swafford.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Bulldogs in this tournament.
First win in 41 years for the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart, 66-15 overall at Georgia in the 6 years he's been there. I don't know for sure, I'm not a huge SEC fan, but 5 or 6 of those losses have to be against Alabama also. So he's basically undefeated against everybody else in the country. Finally got over the hump. You know, I'm not a huge Georgia fan either. I think the barking and all that's a little much, but good for those guys. First championship in 41 years. Will it work for Kisner? We're going to find out this weekend at the Sony Open, Waialae Country Club, East Honolulu, Hawaii. For Bones, DK Golf, and TW Man, my name is Edge. Thanks for listening. Good luck this week at the Sony Open.
Thank you, Edge.